Imagine the bell of a Paris church in AD 1307 trembling in the dark, not to call saints to prayer, but to count down the seconds until a door splinters. You feel winter pressing through stone. You taste smoke trapped in the city's throat. You hear boots, too many boots, measuring the street like a ruler. You are awake before the knock arrives, because the silence outside does not feel like ordinary night. It feels like a held breath. You sit up on a straw mattress inside holy walls, but the air does not belong to holiness. The air carries wet wool, horse sweat, torch pitch, and the faint sour bite of fear. You see candlelight shiver on the wall as if the flame also listens. Imagine your hand finding the edge of your cloak and discovering how thin cloth is against a king's decision. You hear the gate shudder. Not an accident. Not a drunk. The sound is deliberate, repeated, practiced. Therefore your body understands before your mind does. Someone outside rehearses violence until it becomes routine. You stand, bare feet cold on stone, and the corridor seems longer than it ever seems at dawn prayers. You see another brother step out of his cell, eyes wide, mouth half formed around a question that cannot become speech. But speech feels dangerous tonight. A second shudder hits the gate, and dust drops from the arch like tiny gray snow. You smell iron, whether from the gate's nails or from blood your mind already imagines, you cannot tell. Fog of war settles inside your skull. No one knows if this is a raid for thieves, a search for weapons, a summons for a witness, or a sentence. You hear the first crack of wood giving way, and the sound is not loud. It is intimate, like a bone. Torches bloom outside like angry flowers, spilling hot light into the cold courtyard. You squint. You see helmets. You see tabards. You see the royal seal on a banner, wax made into cloth. A voice barks an order and men move as if pulled by a single rope. But there is no battlefield, no trumpet, no warning. Therefore the attack feels worse. It arrives as administration. A royal officer steps forward, face sharp with cold and certainty. He holds a document you cannot see clearly, but you feel it anyway, the weight of parchment, the authority of wax. He reads, and names fall out of his mouth like nails. Master, commanders, brothers. Your own name, perhaps, or the name of a man who sleeps 2 cells away. Each name lands like a hammer on a coffin lid. The order comes next. Do not flee, do not hide, do not speak. Even your breath feels like it could be used against you. You wait for the charge to be spoken, because a charge gives shape to danger. But the officer delays the word, savoring it, letting fear fill the gap. Therefore the courtyard becomes a trap of imagination. You think of theft, treason, murder. But the word that finally comes is stranger, larger, hungrier. Heresy. You feel the word more than you hear it. Heresy is not a blade that cuts one place. Heresy is a fire that can be fed anything, prayer, property, people. You taste bile rising because you know that innocence does not protect anyone from a story that powerful. Imagine standing under the red cross of your mantle and realizing it can be painted into a target with 1 syllable. The temple is not only a house of vows. You know what hides behind these walls. Chests, keys, seals, ledgers, obligations written in ink that binds nobles tighter than chains. You have seen men with soft hands and expensive rings come to these rooms with hard eyes, whispering about loans and ransoms and the price of war. But kings pretend they do not fear quiet power until they do. Therefore the torches outside do not hunt only souls. They hunt paper. A soldier grabs your arm. His glove is damp. His grip is firm enough to bruise, but careful enough not to look like assault. You feel the calculation. The crown wants bodies intact for confession. You are marched through the corridor as if through your own life being emptied. The chapel door is open. The altar looks the same. But the air inside smells different now, like wax and accusation. You are pushed into the street with no time to lace dignity together. Cold mud finds your sandals. The city's stones sweat winter. You see neighbors peeking from shutters, eyes like knife slits, watching as if a procession of plague passes. Someone makes the sign of the cross, but not for you. Against you. The street is full of movement that should not exist at this hour. Men with torches turn corners in formation. The arrests happen everywhere at once, not like a mob, but like a net thrown over a river. Therefore, the most terrifying weapon tonight is not a sword. It is coordination. Imagine realizing that the king's men know exactly which door to strike, exactly which man to seize, exactly which question to ask, because someone plans this in silence for weeks while you pray in routine. You look left, and a brother you recognize is dragged by his hood so hard his neck strains. You look right, and another brother is shoved into a cart already half full of bodies and cloaks. But the city swallows their faces quickly. Therefore, you cannot tell if the order is being dismantled or if only a handful are taken as tokens. The fog of war is thick. Maybe reinforcements arrive from another commandery. Maybe the Pope intervenes. Maybe this is a misunderstanding that dissolves at sunrise. But the torches say otherwise. A cartwheel creaks. The sound is mundane, therefore monstrous. It tells you this night runs on ordinary tools: rope, wood, wax, ink. You are lifted, shoved, and packed among other men. You smell unwashed wool, fierce sweat, and the sharp scent of torch smoke in beards. The cart jolts forward, and your stomach drops as if a cliff opens under Paris. Streets slide past. You see familiar corners made alien by torchlight. You feel every cobblestone through the cart's boards. Someone whispers a prayer, but his voice cracks, therefore the prayer sounds like a confession already. A guard walks beside the cart and taps his staff against the wood in a slow rhythm, like counting livestock. You keep your eyes down, because meeting a guard's gaze feels like inviting attention. But you cannot keep your mind down. Questions swarm. What can be accused? What can be proven? Heresy is not proven by steel. Heresy is proven by a man's mouth being forced to shape words. Imagine hearing your own heartbeat and wondering whether it will betray you louder than any witness. The cart stops at a building that smells of old damp and newer urine. A door opens and darkness breathes outward, thick as cloth. You are pulled down, your feet slipping and your shoulders slamming into stone. Therefore, pain arrives not as a wound, but as a steady tax on your body. A guard shoves you forward. You see narrow stairs. You hear water dripping somewhere unseen. The cell is small, and the straw is stale. A chain lies coiled in the corner like a sleeping animal. You sit because standing feels pointless. You feel cold rising through the floor into your bones. Imagine the irony. Vowed to poverty, yet hunted for riches, vowed to obedience, yet accused of rebellion against heaven. Rumors arrive like rats through cracks you cannot see. A guard laughs and says the Pope supports this. Another guard mutters the Pope is furious. But guards enjoy power, therefore their words may be bait. A fellow prisoner whispers through the wall that the charge includes spitting on the cross. Someone else says you worship an idol with a beard. Another says the initiation is a filthy ceremony, therefore the city's imagination can feast. You hear the phrase Red Cross spoken with disgust, as if cloth itself can be evidence. Each rumor contradicts the last, therefore certainty becomes impossible. The fog of war turns your cell into a theater where your mind performs every possible ending. You feel your faith strain under the weight of not knowing which authority hunts you, the crown, the church, or both at once. Days blur, not because time moves quickly, but because every hour tastes the same: cold, hunger, and waiting. Food arrives as a crust that scratches the throat. Water arrives smelling of wood and mold. Therefore your body begins to bargain with itself. Say anything for warmth, say anything for sleep. Interrogations begin. A guard unlocks the cell, metal on metal, and the sound is sharp enough to cut. You are led down a corridor where torches throw shadows that jump like frightened animals. You enter a room with a table, a clerk, and a candle that burns too low. The room smells of wax, sweat, and heated metal. Imagine realizing that the decisive minute of your life is not in armor under open sky, but under a candle guttering in a bureaucrat's draft. A clerk's quill scratches like an insect on parchment. The sound is steady, therefore threatening. A question comes, simple, clean, deadly. Admit it. Another question comes, name names. Another, confirm what is already written. You see the trap forming. The words are not looking for truth. They are looking for closure. Therefore, the script on the parchment begins to lead the mouth instead of the mouth leading the script. You try to answer carefully, but careful answers are messy, and messiness looks like deception. The interrogator's eyes narrow. He does not want complexity. He wants a lever. You feel your tongue become heavy, not from sin, but from the terror of misunderstanding the wrong phrase. Sleep is stolen. Not by loud noise, but by design. A guard wraps the door. Another guard drags chains. Light appears, disappears. Therefore your mind begins to slip at the edges, and reality becomes soft enough to shape. Food reduces. The body's strength drains away like water through cracks. You feel your stomach gnawing itself. You feel your lips splitting. Therefore the promise of a simple end becomes the most seductive thing in the room. You are shown a statement already composed. The parchment lies there like a verdict wearing the mask of a question. Confess and the pain ends, maybe. Refuse and you become an example, definitely. The candle flickers as if even fire hesitates to witness. Imagine the cruelty of choice when both options lead to loss, but one leads to immediate relief. In the next room, a sound breaks through the stone. Not a word. A sound like a man falling downstairs inside his own body. You feel your skin tighten. Therefore the silence after becomes worse than the scream, because silence suggests compliance. Silence suggests ink flowing. The interrogator leans forward. The question lands softly, therefore it lands harder. Did you deny Christ at your reception? You swallow and your throat tightens around a memory. There is a ritual, strange, private, layered in obedience. There is secrecy because enemies surround the roads, because spies watch, because the world is dangerous. But secrecy is easy to twist. Therefore a symbol becomes an accusation. A test becomes blasphemy. You see the interrogator's face, not curious, not uncertain. Hungry for a sentence that fits the story. The wider board is invisible from this chair. You cannot see the king's desperate need for coin, the hunger to break any power that holds his debts, the rivalry that pulses between crown and altar. But you feel the teeth of it closing anyway. Therefore politics becomes physical. It is the rope on your wrists, the hunger in your belly, the candle's smoke in your eyes. Someone places heated metal near enough for you to smell it. The scent is distinct, hot iron, sharp, clean, unforgiving. Your breathing quickens. The body wants to leap away, but there is nowhere to go. Therefore your mind begins to offer bargains, a half-truth, a misremembered detail, a forced sentence that ends the moment. Imagine hearing your own voice say something you do not believe, and feeling it become real the instant the quill records it. The confession is not a confession. It is a survival reflex-wearing language. You say a phrase that can be interpreted. The clerk writes it in a form that cannot be escaped. Therefore your words leave your mouth as yours and arrive on parchment as theirs. The interrogator nods, satisfied, and satisfaction is terrifying because it means the machinery accepts you as fuel. You are led back to your cell, and the corridor seems shorter now because defeat compresses space. In the cell, the cold feels different. It feels like shame. But shame is also a tool they use. Therefore even your prayers become tangled. You stare at the wall and try to remember the exact shape of what you said, but exhaustion blurs it and uncertainty becomes another chain. Outside, the machine keeps turning. Arrests feed confessions, confessions feed more arrests. The story of the order is no longer written by the order. Therefore the narrative becomes a weapon that spreads faster than troops. You hear footsteps, keys, sobs, and sometimes laughter. Therefore the building feels less like a prison and more like a mill grinding grain into flour. One day, a guard carries something past your cell, a ledger. You glimpse it only for a moment, but the sight hits harder than any insult. The book is thick. The binding is worn by hands that count obligations. The ink is neat. Therefore you understand, this raid is not only about souls. It is about paper, coin, and control. Imagine watching a man walk away with the record of promises that bind the powerful and realizing the powerful now want those promises erased or reassigned. Months pass, but the passage does not feel like time moving forward. Therefore it feels like one long night that refuses to end. You are moved from cell to cell. You see faces age quickly under stone ceilings. A brother who once stands tall now hunches as if carrying invisible sacks. Another stares at his hands as if waiting for them to vanish. Some men cling to their confessions because recanting is another kind of death. Others recant when immediate terror fades. Therefore the system calls them liars twice. Liars when confessing, liars when denying. The records become a labyrinth. Statements resemble one another too closely, as if copied. Allegations stretch to fit prosecutors' needs. Therefore, truth begins to look like costume. You feel the sickening problem. When pain writes the testimony, certainty becomes theater. Yet the truth is not clean enough to rescue you. That is the cruelest part. The order holds secrets because secrecy keeps routes safe, keeps plans from raiders, keeps discipline. But secrecy also breeds odd rites, private obedience tests, traditions that feel ancient but are poorly understood by new brothers. Therefore, fragments exist that can be exaggerated, distorted, weaponized. You remember a gesture, a whispered phrase, a moment of humiliation designed to crush pride. Was it wisdom or cruelty? Was it spiritual training or abuse disguised as training? You do not know. Fog of war lives inside memory too. The interrogators do not need your certainty. They need your confusion. Confusion can be edited. Therefore, even honest hesitation becomes guilt on parchment. Imagine the helplessness of knowing that a complex human ritual can be translated into a single filthy sentence and sold to the streets as fact. Somewhere beyond these walls, power negotiates. You hear distant talk that papal authority is involved. You hear that a document exists far away, something that suggests absolution for leaders, a complicated judgment rather than a neat story of devil worship. But absolution is not rescue when a king controls the prisons. Therefore, the difference between spiritual forgiveness and physical freedom becomes painfully clear. You picture parchment with seals being passed hand to hand in warm rooms while you shiver in damp stone. You picture debates over doctrine while you chew crust. Therefore, faith feels less like light and more like a corridor full of locked doors. You feel the gap between heaven's court and the king's court, and the gap is wide enough to swallow a man. The order dissolves on paper, and paper changes the world. Property shifts hands. Keys change owners. Networks of credit are broken and redistributed. But you do not see the meetings where men smile politely while dividing what you once guarded. Therefore, the theft feels invisible, like air stolen from lungs at night. You only notice when guards wear better boots, when officials carry newer cloaks, when certain merchants suddenly stand taller. In the streets, the story hardens. People prefer a simple villain to a complicated institution. Therefore, the chant becomes easier than the ledger. You hear whispers that the Templars deserve it. You hear jokes about idols and kisses and demons. The city's fear becomes entertainment. Imagine being reduced from a man with vows and scars to a rumor that makes strangers feel righteous. A name circulates like smoke, Jacques de Molay, the master. Some say he confesses. Some say he recants. But nothing is clear in this fog. Therefore, hope rises and falls like a sick man's breath. You picture a platform. You picture firewood stacked. You picture a crowd leaning forward for warmth and spectacle. The image arrives in your mind even if your eyes never see it. When the burning comes in AD 1314, the city remembers the fire more easily than it remembers the paperwork. You smell imagined smoke in your dreams. You feel heat that is not in your cell. Therefore, the ending becomes myth while the process becomes forgotten. The flames provide a clean picture. The months of coercion provide only stains. Imagine how convenient fire is for memory. It erases detail and leaves a single bright conclusion. The dust settles slowly, like ash. But your life does not return to what it is. Therefore, the cost counts itself in bodies thinned by hunger, in minds fractured by fear, in reputations ground into pulp. Some brothers disappear into other orders, stripped of identity. Some vanish into villages, carrying shame like a hidden wound. Some do not survive the cells. Some survive, but cannot speak without tasting the interrogator's rune. You feel how a purge truly works. It does not require endless battle. It requires synchronized paperwork, sealed orders, coordinated raids, and confessions engineered to look like truth. Therefore, an institution can fall overnight while the public believes it is watching justice. Imagine the brilliance of the trap. The accused provide the evidence with their own mouths, therefore the accuser's hands look clean. The verdict is not only the dissolution of an order. The verdict is the invention of a method. A king strikes at dawn with law in one hand and rumor in the other. Therefore, the purge becomes portable. It can be used again and again, wherever assets tempt power and moral panic can be staged. You feel the pattern in your bones now. Coordination first, narrative second, confession third, redistribution last. Now the mind returns, dragged into the present. The modern mirror rises like a polished shield. Do you see the same rhythm when institutions fall overnight today? A raid synchronized across addresses. Accounts frozen. Leaders paraded. A story repeated until it hardens. Therefore, your body recognizes the shape even before your mind does. You have lived the original choreography. Imagine hearing a headline and tasting, for a moment, torch smoke and damp stone, because the method survives even when the actors change. The legacy question does not ask for a date or a name. It asks something harder. When fear offers safety in exchange for silence, when a ready-made narrative demands your nod, when paperwork arrives already written, what becomes of truth inside your mouth? Therefore, the final crossroads stands in your own life, not in a medieval cell. You feel it as weight behind the ribs, the weight of choosing whether to repeat a chant or to endure uncertainty long enough to see clearly. Imagine your hands on a door that shakes under authority. You see torches through the cracks. You feel winter in the stones. But the choice remains: become the ink that writes someone else's story, or become the witness who refuses to let pain, physical or social, compose reality. The night in Paris ends, but the method keeps walking, quiet as boots counting distance.